Boker Tov Mishpuchim. I am coming to you with another Torah reading. We are in the Torah portion of Toldot. And we just finished Chayei Sarah yesterday. And now we are beginning the next portion of Toldot. And this is the first reading. And I'm reading from my Hebrew English Chetas. And let us begin. Toldot, starting with chapter 25, verse 19. Torah up here, Rashi down here. Let us begin. The following are the descendants of Isaac, son of Abraham. Abraham was the father of Isaac. Isaac was 40 years old when he married Rebekah, daughter of Bethuel, the Aramean of Padan Aram, and sister of Laban, the Aramean. Verse 19, Rashi. The following are the descendants of Isaac, Jacob and Esau, who are mentioned later in this section. Abraham was the father of Isaac. Since Scripture wrote, Isaac, son of Abraham, it was also required to say, Abraham was the father of Isaac, because the scoffers of the generation were saying that Sarah had become pregnant by Abimelech, for she had lived many years with Abraham and had not become pregnant by him. What did the Holy One, blessed be he, do to disprove them? He made Isaac's facial features similar to those of Abraham, and thus all could testify that Abraham was Isaac's father. And that is what is meant by what is written here, Isaac was the son of Abraham. For there is evidence that Abraham was indeed the father of Isaac. Verse 20, Rashi, 40 years old. For when Abraham came from Mount Moriah, he was informed that Rebekah, Isaac's designated mate, was born, and Isaac was then 37 years old. For at that point Sarah died, and from the birth of Isaac until the Akedah, the binding of Isaac, at which time Sarah died, was 37 years. For she was 90 years old when Isaac was born, and 127 years old when she died. As it says, Sarah's lifetime was 127 years, making Isaac then 37 years old, and at that time Rebekah was born. He walked 3 years until she was fit for marriage. He waited 3 years until she was fit for marriage, and then married her. Daughter of Bethuel, the Aramean of Padan Aram, and sister of Laban. Was it not already written that she was Bethuel's daughter and Laban's sister from Padan Aram? It is repeated here, however, to recount her praise, that she was the daughter of a wicked man, the sister of a wicked man, and her hometown was a place of evil people, yet she did not learn from their evil deeds. Of Padan Aram, because there were 2 Arams in proximity, Aram Naharaim and Aram Tzova. The verse calls them a pair, having the same meaning as, which translates as a pair of cattle. Some explain as meaning the field of Aram, for in Arabic a field is called Padan. Verse 21, Torah. Isaac pleaded with God at one corner of the room, while his wife did the same at the opposite corner of the room, for she was barren. God responded to Isaac's plea. Thus his wife Rebekah conceived. Verse 21, Rashi. Pleaded. He prayed much and repeatedly. God responded to his plea. He allowed himself to be implored, appeased, and persuaded by him. I say that every use of the term here is an expression of the persistence and increasing and similarity we find with the thick smoke of the incense and abundance of ascending smoke, and similarly, and you have multiplied your words against me, and similarly and excessive are the kisses of the enemy. They seem too numerous and are thus burdensome and cresta in Old French. Opposite his wife, he stood in one corner and prayed, and she stood in the other corner and prayed. God responded to his plea, to his but not to hers, since there is no comparison between the prayer of a righteous person, Isaac, who is the child of a righteous person, Abraham, and the prayer of a righteous person, Rebekah, who is the child of a wicked person, Bethuel. God therefore responded to his, Isaac's, prayer and not to hers. Verse 22, Torah. The children struggled within her. She said, if the pain of pregnancy is so great, why did I pray for it? So she went to the academy of Shem and ever to inquire of God. Verse 22, Rashi. The children struggled. This verse obviously calls for an interpretation, since it does not explain what the struggling was about, yet it writes as Rebekah's reaction. If this is how it is, why did I pray for this? Our rabbis expounded the word here as being an expression of running. When she passed by the entrances of the Torah academies of Shem and Ever, Jacob would hurry and wriggle to try to come out, and when she passed by the entrance of a place of idol worship, Esau would wriggle and try to come out. Another explanation. They struggled with each other and fought over the inheritance of two worlds, this world and the world to come. She said, is this how it is, that the pain of pregnancy is so great? Why, then, did I long and pray to become pregnant? So she went to inquire to the house of study of Shem, to inquire of God, that he tell her what would be with her in the end. Verse 23, Torah. God told Shem to say to her, the progenitors of two nations are in your womb. Two powers will diverge the moment they emerge from within you. Thus, the upper hand will pass from one power to the other and back again. Nonetheless, even when the elder has the upper hand, the elder and his descendants will always serve the younger and his descendants. Verse 23, Rashi. God said to her, through a messenger, Shem was told through divine inspiration, and he told her, two nations are in your womb. Although read as nations, it is written similar to, meaning aristocrats. This alludes to Antoninus and Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, whose tables never lacked radish or lettuce, neither in summer nor in winter. Two powers. This word always denotes kingdom. Will diverge from inside your body. They will separate immediately upon emerging from the womb, one to his wickedness and the other to his guilelessness. Will be stronger than the other kingdom. They will never be equally great, for when one rises, the other will fall. And so it says, Tyre, shall be filled with the one that is laid waste. Tyre of the kingdom of Esau only became powerful through the destruction of Jerusalem of the kingdom of Jacob. Verse 24, Torah. Her pregnancy reached full term. There were twins in her womb. Verse 24, Rashi. Her pregnancy reached full term. These words are superfluous and only added to contrast with the case of Tamar, about whom it is written, at the time of her giving birth, because she did not complete her full term of pregnancy, since she gave birth to them after only 7 months. There were twins. The word here is written without an aleph, but in the case of Tamar, the word here is written in full, because they're both twins were righteous. But here, one was righteous and the other was wicked. Verse 25, Torah. The first one emerged ruddy and full of hair all over, like a woolen cloak that is covered with hair. So everyone present at his birth called him Esav, and Asui completed. All right, verse 25, Rashi. Ruddy, an indication that he would shed blood, means he was full of hair, like a woolen garment that is completely covered with hair, floshid in Old French. They named him Esau. Everyone called him so because he was fully made and complete with hair, like one who is many years old. Verse 26, Torah. His brother then emerged, and his hand was grasping Esau's heel. God named the second son Yaakov, Jacob, also Akev, heel. Isaac was in his 60th year, when Rebekah gave birth to them. Verse 26, Rashi. His brother then emerged. I have heard an Aggadic explanation that explains this verse in a way that concurs with its straightforward meaning. Jacob rightfully held on to Esau to hold him back. Jacob was created from the first drop of seed, and Esau from the second. Go and learn this idea from a tube with only one narrow opening. Insert 2 stones into it, one after the other. The one inserted first will come out last, and the one inserted last will come out first. Consequently, Esau, who was conceived last, came out first, and Jacob, who was conceived first, came out last. Jacob therefore tried to hold Esau back, so that he would be born first, just as he was conceived first, and he would be the first out of the mother's womb, and claim the birthright rightfully. Esau's heel. This was a sign that Esau will be unable to complete his period of sovereignty before Jacob arises and takes his power from him. He named him Jacob. The Holy One, blessed be he, named him so, saying, You gave your firstborn a name. I shall also give my firstborn a name. That is what is meant by he named him Jacob. Another explanation, it was his father who called him Jacob, on account of his holding on Esau's heel. In his 60th year, 10 years passed from the time he married her until she was in her 13th year and capable of childbearing. And these following 10 years he hoped and waited for her to conceive, just as his father had done for Sarah, when she did not then conceive. He knew that she was barren, and he prayed for her. He did not wish to marry a bondwoman, as his father Abraham had done, because he had been sanctified as an unblemished ascent offering on Mount Moriah. What was that? Verse 26, verse 27, Torah. The boys grew. Esau became an expert in ensnaring his father. He was a man who spent his time in the field. Jacob was a guiltless man. He went to live in the tents of Shem and Eber to study the Torah. Verse 27, Rashi. The boys grew. Esau became, as long as they were young, they were not distinguishable by their actions, and no one paid much attention to their characters. However, once they reached the age of 13, this one, Jacob, went his way to the houses of study, and the other, Esau, went his way to idol worship. An expert in ensnaring, he knew how to trap and deceive his father with his mouth, asking him, Father, how does one tithe salt and hay? His father thus thought that he was meticulous in observing the commandments. A man of the field. Explain this literally. A man without a proper occupation, who hunts beasts and birds with his bow. Guiltless, he was not familiar with all these deceitful things. His heart and his speech were consonant. A person who is not sharp at deceiving is called a straightforward person. living in tents, the tents of Shem and the tents of Ever. Verse 28, Torah. Isaac loved Esau, both for the game he provided from his hunting and because he was deceived by his cunning words, while Rebekah loved Jacob. Verse 28, Rashi, in his mouth. The straightforward meaning is as Onkelos translates it, he ate what Esau hunted. Thus, this means in the mouth of Isaac. But the midrashic explanation is, this means in the mouth of Esau. Esau would ensnare Isaac and deceive him with his words. And verse 29, Torah. Jacob was cooking a stew. Esau came in from the field, exhausted. Verse 29, Rashi, an expression of cooking as Onkelos translates it. And he was exhausted from murdering, as it says, in connection with murder. For my soul is exhausted through murderers. Verse 30, Torah. Esau said to Jacob, now, feed me a gulp of that red stuff, for I am exhausted. He was therefore given the nickname Edom, Adom, red. Verse 30, Rashi, this word means, I will open my mouth and you pour a lot into it. As we have learned in the Mishnah, one must not force feed a camel, but one may pour food into its mouth. Of that red stuff, they were red lentils. On that day, Abraham had died, which God had brought about so that Abraham would not see his grandson Esau falling into bad ways. And then there would not have been a realization of the good old age that the Holy One, blessed be He, had promised him. Therefore, the Holy One, blessed be He, shortened his life by 5 years. For Isaac lived 180 years, but Abraham lived only 175 years. Jacob was cooking lentils with which to feed the mourner the customary first meal. Why lentils? Because they are similar to a wheel, and the state of mourning is like a wheel that revolves in the world. Furthermore, just as lentils have no mouth opening, so too the mourner has no mouth, for he is forbidden to speak to greet others. Therefore, the custom is to feed the mourner eggs for his first meal, because they are round and have no mouth, just as a mourner has no mouth. As we say in Moed Katan, during the first 3 days of a mourner does not return a greeting to anyone, and certainly does not initiate greetings. From the 3rd to the 7th day he may return a greeting to one who mistakenly greeted him, but not initiate greetings. All right, so verse 31, Torah. Jacob replied, sell me your birthright irrevocably, so the transaction be as clear as day. Verse 31, Rashi, its meaning is as Onkelos translates it, as this day, just like the day is clear. So sell me the birthright by a clear, unequivocal sale. Your birthright. Jacob asked him to sell it because the sacrificial service was then carried out by firstborns. And Jacob said, this wicked man is not worthy to offer sacrifices for the Holy One. Blessed be He. Verse 32, Torah. Esau said, look, I am going to eventually die anyway, so of what use is a birthright to me? Verse 32, Rashi, look, I am going to die. The birthright is unstable and transitory, for the privilege of service will not be carried out by the firstborns for all time, for the tribe of Levi will later receive it. Furthermore, Esau said, what is the nature of this service? Jacob answered him, many prohibitions, punishments, and acts subject to the death penalty are associated with it, as we have learned. These are liable for the death penalty. Those who enter the holy temple to serve, having drunk a revi'it of wine, or with hair grown long. Esau replied, I am going to die because of it. So what wish have I for it? Verse 33, Torah. Jacob said, "Make an oath to me this day." So he swore to him and sold him his birthright to Jacob. Jacob then gave Esau bread and lentil stew. He ate and drank and got up and left. Thus Esau spurned the birthright. Verse 34, Rashi. Thus Esau spurned. Scripture testifies to his wickedness, that he despised the service of the omnipresent. Verse 1, chapter 26, Torah. There was a famine in the land, apart from the first famine that had been in the days of Abraham. So Isaac went to dwell with Abimelech, king of the Philistines, in Gerar. God appeared to him and said, "Do not go down to Egypt. Rather, live in the part of the Holy Land of which I will tell you." Verse 2, Rashi. Do not go down to Egypt, for he was meaning to go down to Egypt just as his father had in the time of famine. God therefore said to him, "Do not go down to Egypt, for you are an unblemished ascent offering, and to live outside the land of Israel is not fitting for you." Verse 3, Torah. Sojourn in the land that I will be with, and I will be with you and bless you, for I will give all these lands to you and your descendants, and I will fulfill the oath that I made to your father Abraham. Verse 3, Rashi, is that this is the same as these. Verse 4, Torah. Verse 3, verse 4. I will make your descendants so numerous that you will not be able to count them, just as it is impossible to count the stars of the sky, and give all these lands to your descendants. All the nations of the earth will bless themselves by mentioning the names of your descendants. When someone will want to bless his children, he will say, "May you be like Isaac's children." Verse 4, Rashi, will bless themselves by your descendants. A man will tell his son, "May your descendants be like the descendants of Isaac." And so is the meaning of this phrase wherever it occurs throughout Scripture. This is the classic example. With you will the Israelites invoke blessing on the sons, saying, "May God make you like Ephraim and Manasseh." We also find this in connection with curses. The woman will be a curse. That one who curses his foe will say, "May you be like that woman." Similarly, and you will leave your name as an oath for my chosen ones. That one who swears will say, "May I be like so and so if I have done such and such a thing." What would you just read? Verse 4, verse 5, Torah. I confer all these blessings upon you because your father Abraham heeded my voice and observed my restrictions, my commandments, my rules, and my instructions. Verse 5, Rashi. Abraham heeded my voice when I put him to the test and observed my restrictions. This refers to decrees ordained to distance a person from transgressing prohibitions written in the Torah, such as the prohibition of marriage between relatives of the second degree, and the rabbinical prohibitions of doing certain acts on the Sabbath. My commandments, Rashi. This refers to those matters which, even if they were not written in the Torah, would have been fitting to be given as commandments, such as the prohibition of robbery and murder. My laws. This refers to those things against which the evil inclination and the nations of the world argue, such as the prohibitions of eating swine and wearing garments made of a mixture of wool and linen, for which there are no apparent reasons but the king's decree and rules imposed upon his servants. In my instructions, this comes to include the oral law, the laws given orally to Moses at Mount Sinai. And that is the first reading of Toledot. All right, you have a wonderful morning.